folks, how's it going? This is Iron Seagull here, back with another Sims Info and Thoughts video. So this is going to be part 1 of 2 of my live stream breakdown. There was just way too much new information to go over to keep this all in one. Plus, you can watch part 1 while you're waiting for part 2, because at this rate, I would not be surprised if it's not out until Saturday night, and I didn't want to wait all the way until then to get all of the information out to you. At least you can get some of this before I go to bed tonight. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So they start off with the whole application process for university, where you can click on the mailbox. And yeah, Sims already sent in an application, but yeah, you can apply for scholarships by clicking on the mailbox too, and you can also go on the computer to do that. There's a variety of different scholarships that you can get. This is not a full list that you're looking at right here. This is just the ones that this particular Sim is applicable to. So the ones she can apply to are Building the Future. Sims who are skilled at handiness or rocket science may be eligible for this scholarship. And then there's esports for Sims who are adept at video gaming. And Sims must also participate as an esport competitor in order to keep the scholarship. I think that's really cool. So some scholarships, you actually do have to do stuff. You can't just be like, oh, I got the scholarship, and then just coast the whole way. You actually gotta do stuff. Then there's food and drink for Sims who are good at cooking. Then there's the great outdoors for Sims who are skilled at fishing, gardening, or other outdoor skills. So maybe herbalism from Outdoor Retreat could apply to this, and maybe a couple of others that I can't think of off the top of my head. And then there's Brightchester Resident. Residents of Brightchester may be eligible for this grant, not eligible for adults or elders. Okay, so then I guess you just gotta get it as a teenager then. But I do find that particular scholarship interesting, because the other ones, yeah, I was just kind of expecting. But I was not expecting scholarships based on the world that you live in, and I like this a lot because it does give a bit more significance as to what world you're living in at the moment. Though I'm not sure if there are certain ones that give more money depending on the world, or if it's the same whether you're in Brightchester or Sulani or Willow Creek. I'm assuming every single world will have their own scholarship and hopefully can be future compatible too, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But moving farther along with the application process, we do see the Sim gets accepted, and SimGuru Rad did explain the difference between the standard degrees and distinguished degrees. So distinguished degrees just give better rewards than the normal degrees do. So for example, if you want your Sim to be a master of the culinary arts and get the best start possible, you will want them to study at Brightchester University over Foxbury, since Foxbury does not have a distinguished degree for the culinary arts. It's only Brightchester University that has it. So once you get your acceptance letter, you gotta click on the computer again, and then click University, enroll in a university. And from there, you gotta choose whether you go with Brightchester University or Foxbury Institute. After that, then you get to choose what degree your Sim is going to specialize in. And then you can choose core classes and optional elective class. And you need to complete 12 classes in order to graduate. The benefits of each degree include increasing daily pay, job performance, and vacation days, and it also lets you know which careers that degree applies to. You can only have up to 4 classes per term, so if you want to go with the full load, then you have to either choose between 4 classes or 3 classes and 1 optional elective. Electives allow your Sims to learn a bit more skills while they're on campus. So if your Sim is going to be primarily a writer with their core classes, they can choose something like mixology or charisma as their elective so they can learn some things in those areas as well. And I think that's really cool, and I feel like that nails the whole experience of studying at university really well. Next up is your Sim's living arrangement. So you can choose to stay at home if you want, or you can move to another lot, but it does not have to be in Brightchester, which I'm really thrilled about. So the example that SimGuru Rad gave is that you could live in an apartment in San Myshuno if you wanted to, if you're moving out of another world. So then there's also the university housing, which is a new venue type, which is basically dorms. There are some unique restrictions with university housing, but we will get into those later. From there, you have an exact breakdown of your costs for university and can choose to pay it off with household funds or with the student loan. Then you have the split from household and move panel where you can choose how much money to transfer to your students who are moving out. They end up giving a very generous amount of 250,000 simoleons, but of course you don't have to give nearly that much. That's just what they felt like going with. So there they are at Drake Hall, which is the dorm that they ended up choosing. So you are able to edit the dorms, but only while no playable Sims are currently living there. If you do have Sims who are currently living there, you can't edit it. This was done for realistic purposes, because if I'm living in a dorm, I'm not allowed to just go and paint the walls of my room whenever I'd like. However, if you really need to get around this limit, you can still do the bb.enable free build cheat in order to edit the lot while your Sim is living there. There is a new roommate system that's being put into the game, and in university housing, roommates do move in, and you can have a maximum of 9 roommates if you are playing as just one Sim. So there is a total limit of 10 Sims. And roommates can act a little differently, so some roommates can be really clean, and some can be very messy. You can hire a maid to come once a week and clean things up, but they will clean things, but they won't necessarily pick up everything after you. And apparently this was also another sort of realistic design decision. And then when it comes to assigning a room to your Sim, there's 2 different things you can do. You can assign a bed, and you can also lock your doors for specific Sims, and we'll actually see that in a minute. But now they're just doing the assign bed thing. And one cool little improvement is that when you hover over the bed, it does show a picture of the Sim that it's currently assigned to. The other thing that you can do is take advantage of the door locking system. So you can lock doors for a specific Sim, and then you do have the typical lock door for options, including everyone but roommates. The next thing they show off is a university kiosk, which is where you can actually buy a whole bunch of live draggable furniture. So you can still actually personalize your dorm room without having to do BB enable free build and redecorating from there. So you can see there are some posters you can buy, there's the textbooks, which is also good because in case you lose your homework, you can rebuy it from there, as well as the bookshelf, kind of like how you already can with the elementary and high school homework. There's also lamps, room dividers, rugs, bicycles, juice kegs, potted plants, and more. Coming from someone who recently replayed Sims 2 University and Sims 3 University Life, this is quite a change, but in my opinion, it's a welcome one. It's a lot more realistic this way. And if you really want to just go all out, you can still use that cheat to get around it. One of the interesting things they ended up buying was a storage chest, but it works differently compared to the ones that we already have, because this one actually has the inventory restricted to that particular one instead of it being shared across all the chests that are currently on the lot. You can also place a few items on top of the chest and name the chest if you would like. They also showed off the mini fridge for a bit, and there are a few new recipes that you can make as a microwave quick meal since the cooking options are restricted in university housing. So the new ones here are instant noodles, breakfast burrito, and pizza rolls. Yeah, I know, pizza rolls is blocked out by their face cam, but SimGuruRad did verbally confirm that they are a thing, and I am pretty excited about that, not gonna lie. Yes, pizza rolls. Oh man, I haven't had pizza rolls in years, but yeah, definitely a good choice for university students to have. Though I can't help but notice that the instant noodles look exactly like the ramen from City Living, so yeah, that sucks that they reused that. One feature they added that I'm a big fan of is computer security settings. So you can lock a computer for a specific sim, or lock computers for just kind of like with the door locking options. So in a way, it's a little bit similar to Little Miss Sam's personal objects mod that I showed off on my channel fairly recently. But I'm really glad that this is finally an official feature, because I hate it when guests come over and then they just go to the computer right away. Just excuse me. So thankfully we can change that now. They are about to head to the student commons for University of Brightchester, but to keep things a little bit more organized, I'm skipping forward here just so you have a breakdown of what goes into university housing with the rules and restrictions. So you do need an elevator, mailbox, trash chute, beds, toilets, and a shower. But what's also really interesting is that there's stuff that is forbidden, which includes outdoor cooking, like a barbecue, and stoves. So that means if you place one of those objects down, it will become invalid. You will not be able to finish the build if you keep that stove in there. I've seen some pretty divided opinions over this, and personally, I think I like this because in my experience, I don't often see stoves in dorms because they don't want to worry about students setting the place on fire. So I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Another thing is that this adds a bit more challenge, and I know there's been a lot of complaints about challenge and not much of it in The Sims 4, including from myself. So that's another nice thing that really adds to the actual struggle of being in university. There is the cafeteria, which we'll get to a little bit later, but yeah, there's also gender restrictions. So you can have no gender restriction at all, or you can have it be restricted to males only or females only. And you can also have it be associated with the university organization. So for example, you can make it so that any sim who lives in the university housing has to be affiliated with the bot savants. But of course, you don't need to do that if you don't want to. You can just have it be no affiliation at all with any of the organizations. You also need to restrict the housing to be affiliated with a certain university, whether it's Foxbury or University of Brightchester. So you can't have a university housing that houses both universities in one. One thing to note is that there's no pre-made frat houses or sororities, but using these restrictions, you can do that yourself if you want to. Another thing to note, just with university in general, is that while your Sims are attending university, they will still age normally if you have aging turned on. So now moving on to the student commons, it's basically a library and a cafeteria merged into one. And with the cafeteria, there is a new object that you can place down that a Sim works at, and depending on the time of day, there will be different food if that is available. And there's also a prank where you can add a little spice, and I think the Sim was just adding a little bit of salt to the food when the Sim there wasn't looking, but nope, she still got caught anyways. I also find it really weird just how few options there are for ordering food, and why is water the only drink that you can get from there? I find that very strange as well. And the biggest thing to me, though, is that there's no option to work at the cafeteria as a temporary sort of job like you could in The Sims 2, so I'm gonna really miss that a lot. There's still a slight chance I could be wrong here, but SimGuru Rad did click on that object a few times, and no option came up before a Sim started working there, so it doesn't look like you can. On the subject of working while at university, you can still do that, though the SimGurus did warn us that it is possible that the career schedule can conflict with your class schedule, so you might even have to skip a work shift in order to attend class, so be sure to plan very wisely. I would probably recommend just doing one of the part-time jobs or a freelancer career. There's also food stalls that work much like what we had in previous packs, and it seems like most of the different food and drink options that you can get are brand new. On the library half of the student commons, there's also these research machines where you can study and research for your classes, though I'm confused as to why they're on these specific research machines instead of being on the normal computers. And you can also see a set of debate podiums. There are events that can take place here as well, including cram sessions. They also mentioned the sports arena, from which I can tell is another rabbit hole, sadly. You can put up banners, you can join a sports team, and you can attend esports games and soccer games that have different schedules. After the lobster mascot fights the dragon mascot and the lobster mascot loses and actually loses the head part of the costume, you can see some of the options for the bike right there. You can even bike together if you want, which I think is pretty cool. And you can ride around, which it seems like it works similarly to how the boats worked in Island Living. You can also sit in on skill classes, which is like the electives, but it's just a one-time thing rather than for your whole term. Keep in mind though that sitting in on a skill class does not give you any credit. But getting back to the bikes, you can see the options while it's in your inventory are place in world, rename bike, ride bike around, set as favorite bike, and travel. As I mentioned in a previous video, yes, bikes can be used in all worlds, not just in Brightchester. So you can see her getting on the bike. Unfortunately, the helmet just pops on and off, so it's a little too bad there's no animation for that. But yeah, the animation looks better than I thought it would, where the turns aren't like completely 90 degrees. It's not as stiff as I imagined, but yeah, it's pretty cute. I like this. There is a skill meter over the Sim's head as she's using the bike, so I'm assuming she is building fitness skill while doing this. And I noticed it is possible to get an energized buff from bikes, though I'm not sure what exactly it says for the text, but yeah, it is there. One thing that was mentioned during this segment is that it is possible to have roommates outside of university. You can have your sim place an ad through the phone or the computer, and then roommates can help you pay your bills. They also mentioned that you do not need to be a university student in order to be able to visit Brightchester. They also go over organizations. You can see there is a new social groups UI in the bottom right corner. So you can check the schedule right here, and you can see there are different ones depending on if you're at the University of Brightchester or the Foxbury Institute. If you want your sim to get into an organization, then you need to find a sim who is part of that organization and ask how to get in. With the special statue that is in front of each university, you can prank it, as you can see in the trailer, but you can also make an offering to the statue, and apparently you can use the research machine in order to have more options. With the food offering that this sim made, she got this laser focus buff. And it says that Chloe definitely feels lucky. This is a great time to take advantage and do some schoolwork. Then the next thing we're going to talk about are the public washrooms, because we do have the toilet stalls returning, and there's actually supposed to be two different kinds, where one has an obnoxiously bigger gap than the other because it's just like, oh ha ha, why do Americans have such big gaps with the toilet stalls? But we also have open showers returning that have no walls, so I'm pretty excited about that. That's a really nice addition that I've been wanting for a very long time. Good to see that we're finally getting it. There is a catch though. Children and teenagers won't use these showers around other Sims, but adults can, and they will have a chance of getting this embarrassed buff. So there is still a bit of consequence about that. And you're about to see this prank on a toilet stall here, where the toilet stall will get dirty and the sim will get sprayed by the toilet. Reminds me of The Sims 3 Generations a little bit. Oh yes, and the toilet actually breaks too. It's not just getting really dirty from it. And now we can see Brightchester's world map. So it is divided into 3 districts. There's one for Brightchester University, one for Foxbury Institute, and then there is a town that is in the middle. They do have some pre-made households living in the world, and one that really surprised me is that the Pleasant twins from The Sims 2 are returning, Angela and Lilith, and they are actually going to opposite universities. Yup, staying true to their sibling rivalry there. Yes, awesome. They also mentioned the 2 new law traits that are coming with this pack. So there's Study Spot, where Sims will study and learn skills faster, and won't get exhausted from studying as quickly. And then there's University Student Hangout, which attracts more students, and any food and drinks cost less there. They also mention at this point that yes, elders can study at university. Children and teenagers cannot, but they can still visit the world if they want to. They also end up confirming that bunk beds are not in this pack, which I find really frustrating. They did explain that in their research, a lot of dorm layouts don't have bunk beds, but at this point, I'm not sure how many more opportunities there are to bring bunk beds back. If they do a family-oriented game pack or expansion pack that's different in focus from Parenthood, maybe they could do that. And maybe if they did a pack that brings back proper hotels, then they could do it there too. But still, it's really frustrating. The game has been out for 5 years, and we still can't have bunk beds. Here you can see the bot contest event that can go on in the public space here. So thank goodness it is not a rabbit hole. And yes, you can enter your own robot into the contest. Then they talk about some of the bots that you can make. There is a robotics skill, and the Servo is returning, so that's actually like the ultimate reward for getting into that skill. But then there are a bunch of smaller bots that you can craft too, like the Fixer bot and the Gardening bots and the Party bot that can play music. The Servos do take up a slot in your household, and it does seem like they are fully playable as well. And yes, you can woohoo with them, though doing that with them in the shower is not a good idea. However, robots cannot have babies. There is supposed to be a new death. They did not show it off, but it sounded like it is related to servos. Some of the features servos have remind me a bit of Plumbots from Sims 3 Into the Future, though sadly the appearance options are not nearly as in-depth. It's just changing the colors. They do come with traits, and it's possible to reprogram them. I'm assuming the traits are the same as normal Sims. They didn't really talk about that. The servos also have their own set of motives, which include fun, social, durability, and charge. They can be given their own name too. And you can also see that with those smaller robots, battery and durability are a thing even though they're not full household members. With the charge motive, it's that the servos need to recharge every once in a while, and with durability, they will need another sim to tune them up once in a while, otherwise they will break. They need to be sims with a robotic skill, and they also mentioned that research and debate is a new skill as well, which you might have spotted earlier with the whole sit on skill classes thing. Another thing to keep in mind with both the servos and the smaller utility bots is that if you have seasons, rain will break these robots. And if you let a robot be broken too long, it will just become a pile of scrap metal. Servos also have an enhancement gameplay mechanic, where their enhancement level goes up once they learn enough skills. However, it is not possible to waterproof the robot, so that there are consequences for when they meet water. Another thing that they talked about with robotics is the Mech Suit. It has two pieces, and you can wear them individually. So the suit part can enable the same hover mode that the servos have, which is very Iron Man-esque. Obviously, I approve of that. And the helmet gives special abilities like scanning for Sim's trait as well as their mood. There's also special glasses as a reward from the computer engineer branch of the engineer career, as well as a robotic arm that can stop Sims from being injured while using the robotics workbench. And that wraps up another Sims Info and Thoughts video. So stick around for part 2, where I'll talk about details on the new careers, shower woohoo, more of the world of Brightchester, create a sim, party types, and more. So feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below on all the stuff that I talked about in this video. And be sure to subscribe if you want to keep up with my latest content from The Sims, Sonic the Hedgehog, and more. So I will talk to you all later, and have a great day. Thanks for watching.